I encourage everyone to take a moment and breathe and take a tea cheers with a Jiri tea. A Jiri tea recognizes the beauty in shared stories and shared opportunities. Ajiri sources award-winning tea from Kenya, employs women in the region to handcraft the labels, and sends 100% of the profits back to the region to support orphan education. Save 10% on your order of Kenyan teas and coffee with the code BeautifullyHuman at ajiritea.com. AJIRIT.com. Tea mugs up. Hello and welcome to the Beautifully Human podcast. I'm Nick Sheesby. In this podcast, I speak with beautiful humans from all around the world, sharing with you their incredible stories, revealing the power in every human story, to spread love and humanity to a world that is in desperate need of it, to show that we can all connect in beautiful ways, no matter where we come from or what we look like. What you will find out is that we are all beautifully human. Let's all be beautifully human. Welcome into another episode of the Beautifully Human podcast. Today I'm hanging out with Brittany, Everette, and we just have a fantastic conversation. We actually spoke for a couple hours after we got done chatting. She is just an amazing human. You're about to hear all about it. We talk about basketball. We talk about a city we both lived in. We talk about her art, which is really, really incredible. I highly recommend you check it out. But then we also talk about the diagnosis process in the States that she went through with the medical system here and just the everyday struggles that come with her diagnosis. I'll let her tell you all about that. But if you enjoy this podcast, follow us on Spotify, follow along on Instagram at the Beautifully Human Podcast, rate, review, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, and just enjoy this beautiful conversation. So I love to start these off with a big, broad, overarching question and let you kind of run with it and share your story. And so it starts off with, tell me a story of your life or the story of your life.
The story of my life. Oh, okay. Well, I am the child of two Marines. My father was a warrant officer in the Marine Corps. My mother was a lieutenant colonel, both retired. I have two brothers and a sister. So moving a lot, I always had them. And I think that made us best of friends today. Kind of lived everywhere. I ended up marrying someone that wanted to go into the Marine Corps. So now I'm still a Marine family. My whole family loves basketball. So played basketball for most of my life, competitive AAU, had the opportunity to go to college for it, but wanted to live a life outside of sports. So that's where I met my husband, and I got to enjoy being young and irresponsible for a good 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And then I had two kids, and I guess looking back, I'm an artist now full time. And while we were a sports family, I guess I'd say that I come from a very artistic family as well. My mother's a musician. We all play piano. But my father drew portraits with charcoal.
Oh, cool.
And I guess that's just where I got it from. I took it and rolled with it, and here I am today. We also dealt with, I don't know how honest you want us to be out here.
As honest as you want to be. Go wherever you want to go.
I feel like I wouldn't be being truthful if I haven't highlighted the cool parts of my life.
Yeah.
I'm also a child of two alcoholics. And that had a significant impact. My mother is now completely sober for around, I think, 2 years now. And
awesome.
I'm so proud of her.
Yes.
But that had a significant impact on who I am today. I think it's more empathetic and understanding of people and their issues.
Yeah.
But it did lead to my father's death suddenly in November of 2019.
Oh, wow.
And that's kind of shaped who I am the most. And you ask about a life story, I think it's hard to look back all the way because I feel like a new life started then.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything else just kind of seems like a typical middle class military family until that moment.
Sure.
Really. So that's, I don't know what else. I have a degree in health sciences from Virginia Commonwealth University.
Okay.
That I don't use.
Yeah.
I cheered there for a little bit because I was a gymnast most of my life as well, so I could tumble.
Okay.
I have 2 children. After the second one, my youngest, I developed, or we discovered that I have a disability and chronic illness called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And it's, I have the hypermobile type, and it's genetic, genetic connective tissue disease or disorder. So my collagen building blocks just aren't, it's not a deficiency, they're just not built the right way.
Yeah.
So it leads me to being extra flexible and all of my veins and blood vessels being really loose and causes all types of syndromes, POTS, all of it. I have all of it. So that has also shaped and molded who I am.
Yeah.
Going from randomly able-bodied to now disabled Black woman in America trying to figure out the healthcare
Right.
situation.
Yeah.
I had to do a whole new, like I said, it's hard to look back because of things that have happened just within the past 3 or 4 years. I feel like I can't even recall before then.
Right.
But in general, just the family of, just 2 or 1 of 4 military children. These are my best friends today, and lived all over the place. I'm now an artist with disabilities and just trying to navigate life, a new life that way.
I actually spoke to another woman that had the same disorder, and I learned so much. She spoke for quite a long time about it, and I was very happy to learn because I had no idea. So when you said that, I was like, I just kind of took a deep dive on that. What was your diagnosis process like with that?
Oh, okay. So I was a stay-at-home mother as well as an artist. So I was home with my youngest. He was taking a nap. I had been feeling really just exhausted for some months prior, like no amount of caffeine helped. I didn't really know why. Like it wasn't the type of like I didn't get enough sleep. It was like I felt like I was dragging, like I had 1,000 pounds on me. So tired. It didn't matter how much sleep I got. So he was waking up from nap. So I went upstairs to grab him from nap, and I came back downstairs with him. And I was going to start a pot of boiling water to make spaghetti for dinner for when my husband and oldest came home. And my heart, it felt like I was having a heart attack. And I was completely calm, but I couldn't breathe. My view started to narrow, and I'm familiar with anxiety attacks, so that it was not that. And I immediately thought I was having a heart attack or stroke. I tried to wait out for my mom to come so I could drive myself to the ER, but it got bad. I had to call an ambulance. So I get to the ER, and of course they think, oh, we need to send psych down. So that was my first experience. And the psych cleared me and was like, not an anxiety thing. Just, this is a physical health issue.
Yeah.
And they sent me home. I ended up back 4 days later with the same thing. And I kept blacking out while I was there. It was terrifying. I thought I was going to die. And then eventually, one of the nurses said that this is a systemic thing. We should look at like autoimmune, all of that stuff. And we kind of just went back and forth with that for like a year, seeing specialists and all of them kind of saying it's in your head. You just went, my dad had just passed. No, my dad had just kind of disappeared. So I was dealing with that, but that's not what was going on with my body.
Sure.
The stress probably did exacerbate it, but it's not what caused it. So just different specialists telling me I'm fine, nothing's wrong. I'm just a young mom. I need to talk to someone, drink some tea, take some lemongrass. And which led to, I have now permanent heart damage that I saw dysfunction grade 2. That they didn't catch for, I think it was a year and a half after. So, and then that led to the POTS diagnosis. And we were trying to figure out, POTS is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. A lot of people are developing it as a result of COVID today.
Yeah.
That's not how I got mine, but that's a lot. It's leading a lot of people to that. So basically when you're upright or standing upright, all the blood rushes from your brain to your limbs. So you just have a lot of blood pooling. So you're not getting enough oxygenated blood to your brain.
Huh.
It comes with a lot more, but that's the gist.
Yeah.
So I got that diagnosis first. And then we were just kind of like, where did this come from? This doesn't make any sense. It's been an athlete my whole life. I was running or walking 2 miles with 2 kids in a cart just like a month ago. It doesn't make any sense. And then I came across just constant Googling myself because it didn't seem like doctors were even trying to find an answer. And I came across Ehlers-Danlos. And a lot of things that I thought were normal my whole life weren't.
Yeah.
This is my thumbs up. Just straight up 90-degree angle. I thought that was normal.
Right.
Little things like that.
Yeah.
And looking younger than you really are is, I guess, a telltale symptom of it too.
Huh.
I have a lot of like subluxations, so not full dislocations, but my shoulders and hips will pop out of place. Back problems, I passed the diagnostic criteria for it, and finally after that, it just became a rabbit hole of diagnosis. Once a rheumatologist, took me seriously, and it's led to, after the hypermobile diagnosis, it's led to like gastroparesis, occipital neuralgia, iron deficiency, anemia. Like I don't even remember how much, but everything stems from that.
Yeah.
But it was just being taken seriously. That was the hardest part. My heart rate was in the 160s, 170s, and I was sitting down doing nothing.
Wow.
So none of the doctors took that seriously. That was anxiety. I'd be talking just like this. I'm not anxious. I'm not.
Right.
So it was pretty traumatic. I'm doing better today though, but it's still a struggle to just find knowledgeable doctors.
Sure.
The team I have now, they've been with me for like 2 years now, so they're learning with me.
Yeah.
But I have a great team now, but it took a long time to get there. So I can't even imagine what it'd be like if I didn't have access, or the amount of access that I have. If I had a lesser amount, I can't imagine. Like there's so many people out there that probably have the exact same thing. Women especially have the exact same thing going on. You can't get anyone to take them seriously due to what they look like or their financial situation. I cannot imagine because it's hard.
Yeah, that's my takeaway from both of these stories that I've heard on diagnosis of this. And I was just thinking, if you don't have insurance or if you just don't have the funds, I mean, there's so
There's no
much
way.
going into it. That yeah. And
I have great insurance, and the money that I pour into just medications and supplements, and that's not even counting the copays, the doctor's visits. It's a lot, and then you have to add that to managing your own healthcare because you know not everyone gets a caseworker and stuff like that, and it's it's very stressful.
yeah.
Like on top of just like you're supposed to stay as stress free as possible and make yourself not flare up, but the healthcare system makes that nearly impossible.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Oh man, and what always shocks me with it is you go to a doctor, they're supposed to be the most knowledgeable. And what I keep finding is everybody is googling. I was sitting here today, I got
yeah,
results from blood work and no doctor called, and
yeah.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
sitting here going, I don't know what the hell I'm looking at. I don't know.
Why
And
didn't you
so
tell me?
that's
Like,
no
mm-hmm.
one called, no one let me know where to find this information. So I finally find it, and it's just so frustrating to be working and being like, look, yeah, I'm sitting here, I'm speaking to you and this, and my heart is racing and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
anxious. Like there's something happening. And then
Right,
you're supposed to trust them to find it. And a lot of the time it's
right.
just like, you're good.
And then when you bring up like I Googled this and this matches it, they'll be like, don't ever Google, you know, it's gonna say you're dying. Like, yes, it will say you're dying, but Google also gives you access to information that they're not giving you.
Right.
So if I didn't have the internet, I wouldn't have a diagnosis. I could very well be dead.
Yeah.
The internet is how I've gotten a new community of people who
Right.
understand me. The internet is how I've diagnosed myself with everything that I have,
Wow.
every diagnosis. I've brought to them and said, do you think that this is something that could possibly be affecting me? Once I got that hypermobile diagnosis, it was kind of like, yes, everything could be affecting you. So, but and then there's people like who don't even have access to internet. And it's like how,
Yeah.
and then the doctor's not, I have full experience with doctors, like your blood work and stuff being off and you're not seeing it until you go into my chart or get the printout and they didn't say anything
Yeah. Yeah.
and
It's
you're struggling.
right. It's, yeah, the whole system is so frustrating. And I can't even imagine going to try and find something and being like, I know there's something bigger going on in me.
Yes,
I'm an active human. Yes, I have stressors. Of course, we all do. I mean, it doesn't matter
right.
what you do in life. There's stressors
But
because
something is
life.
very wrong.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
It's just like, your body best. Like, yes, these doctors went to medical school. And at first I feel like I was so naive. Like,
Yeah.
yes, they go to school and I respect them so much for that. Good for them. They're here to help us, but not all of them have that mindset, I
Right.
guess. Um, Thankfully, I have an amazing primary care doctor who, after every specialist, he still did what he could within his general scope of medicine. But it just, the specialists just make it so much more difficult to be sick and to stay stress free. And I feel like it just leads to more sickness.
Yeah.
And even just getting the medications that I need, you get the pre-authorizations. So the insurance company is waiting for the doctors who are waiting for the pharmacy. And then you're just in a sick cycle of calling all three of them for months. I still have a medication I'm supposed to be on for it's an autoimmune medication because that test came back positive. Who knows which one I have of that? So
Uh,
I'm just trying to this last hurrah of giving me this medication, but it's been two months now. And my insurance is still like, we're waiting on the doctor, but my doctor is telling me we sent it. We're waiting on the pharmacy. And it's
oh
a lot. Yeah.
man. I
It's
just
so pointless.
yes. It's so hard to even want to go. I mean, I avoided doctors for so long until
Mhm.
literally I just could not.
Yeah,
I related a lot to your story
I get
about
that.
your parents because to a little over 2.5 years ago, coming up on 3 years, I was fully jaundiced because I was and still am a severe
Hmm.
alcoholic, but now I'm like 2.5, almost 3 years sober. So
Congratulations. That's huge.
thank you, thank you.
That's
But that
awesome.
that was the first time I went in because like I was just always afraid because every time I had gone to a doctor, even for something small, it was just such a workaround and
It
so
is
just
exhausting.
yeah. And
Yeah.
that's just for small stuff. And then like luckily I had a really good team of doctors. I mean, I think when you are completely jaundiced, they have a pretty good idea of why.
What's
So
going on?
I
Yeah.
don't think that one's a very hard one. So I had really good doctors that were super helpful when I was
Mm.
there for that, and then I had specialists. But still, even like I remember mornings when I would need to get blood work. And then I would be going to my specialist, and it was in the same hospital system, but it was a small town in Ohio versus Cleveland. So I would send my doctors would send it up to Cleveland,
Mm.
and I always had to print out my own because I'd get there
Always.
every single time. I'd give him the benefit of the doubt and say maybe he got it this time, and then he's like, "Well, I don't know. No, I didn't get anything."
Nope.
And it was like you told me where to send it, you told me where to fax it, you did all this, and you still. I show up and he's like,
But I
"Oh,
did all
thank
over for nothing.
I appreciate you bringing it," and I'm like, what good would this like I just drove an hour to get here. What is it
Right.
going
What
to
choice
do if
would I
I
have?
if you don't have it and I don't have it, what am I going to do? Like and this
Right.
is
I think that's
pretty
the biggest
dire.
issue. Is like doctors not communicating. And I feel like that's so weird. Like if you have one patient in common, don't you think that you should talk to each other about it and not leave it to the patient since you guys are the ones that know what's going on
Yeah.
or can bounce ideas off each other? Like all we have is Google
Right. Yeah.
and what we feel. Like,
Yeah. Oh man, that is just I'm so thankful that they finally that you kept persevering to get that diagnosis.
but it boils down to not having a choice. You know, like what
Right.
it's either you get worse, which I at that point I didn't imagine a word,
Right.
or you just keep stressing yourself out to try to get 20% better, maybe.
Right.
And so I just, it turned my life upside down.
Yeah.
And then it's even the, like you said, the how not wanting to even go. I went through that for a couple of months. And I got worse, but I was like, it's too much stress. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and I need a break. It's a full-time job.
Totally.
And it's terrible. It's really bad. People don't know it unless they're in it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, it just goes to like with a ton of what's happening even with the virus and stuff of just like
Mm-hmm.
people not taking other people seriously when they look at someone. Like I look at you and I can say you look very healthy to me. I look very healthy, but I have
Mm-hmm.
no idea what's going on inside and
Yep.
you have no idea what's going on inside me, and it's like
Yeah.
that also is just such a stigma that I just can't
That's one of the
stand.
hardest parts. It's one of the hardest parts. And it again, when you go from being perfectly healthy, it's not how it should be. But this is, for me, it's how it was. I just didn't know. You hear disability, you hear chronic illness, you think of people who look visibly ill
Yeah.
or people who are paralyzed. You don't really think of all the things in between.
Right.
And it's a very, very large spectrum.
Yeah.
Um,
Massive.
yeah, and it also comes with the guilt of like not knowing. Like I left out all of these people not knowing I was leaving them out.
Right.
I just said wasn't exposed to it. I didn't know. I think that's the messed up part about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
There's a complete ignorance. I mean,
yeah, complete.
until maybe I forget when I spoke with her, until a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I had no idea that even exists.
Right.
There's so much that I'm just ignorant to. And that's why I love having conversations about these topics, because I know I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And we all need to know more about all of these topics so we can think more
Right.
and take it seriously.
Yes. And so I agree completely. Like if we had more knowledge about disabilities and chronic illnesses and invisible illnesses in general, I feel like COVID would have been handled completely different.
Yes.
You know, there's sick people, and they're not just the elderly.
Right.
There are young sick people who don't look sick. There are young children who are
Right.
sick. You know, there's a huge community of people who are immunocompromised, and you can't tell by looking at them.
Right.
I feel like if we all knew that as a collective, we would care a little bit more
Yeah.
about what we're doing that could affect someone at home, someone at their home, you know, someone they go to work with, someone who has to go to work and is sick but can't stay home because they need to pay the bills.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, the pandemic has made it harder to be sick.
Yeah.
You're just told all the time, like, your life is, we don't care if you get sick, you're disposable. And that's been probably, it was hard before the pandemic, but then seeing every day on the news to wear a mask, to not wear a mask, as if hundreds of thousands of people haven't died.
Right. Right.
Like, come on,
Yeah.
let's just care about other people. Like,
Right. Yeah.
they deserve to not get a virus that could be prevented and die.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah.
You
Can
know.
we all just like give a shit about
Yes.
about
Yes.
humans in general? It's
And
not
it's
that tough.
exhausting.
Oh,
Like, it's just, I feel like it's not difficult.
right.
You
I
gotta
have
care
this.
or you don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have this conversation a lot with a friend of mine who just goes through the motions like, am I the asshole? And I'm like, dude, when you care about somebody and put them in, like put other humans as a collective as what you care about, like you're never the asshole in that situation.
Yeah.
It's not
And
possible. Like I'll never look back on 2020, 2021 and be like, man, I cared way too much about people that year.
not at all.
It's
Not at
not
all.
gonna happen.
Like, I just, it's like, I always boil it down to, okay, what does wearing a mask cost you aside from the cost of the mask? How would you feel if you didn't like fully exhibit symptoms and you recovered from COVID, but you passed it on to someone who died, someone whose both their parents died? Then that mask, like, the scale, come on now, like,
Right.
it's not worth someone's life.
No.
Just your opinion on a mask.
Right. Yeah, it's
not.
no.
I'll stay home for a year
Yeah,
if it means, even 5 people don't catch a disease that could kill them.
totally.
Like,
Yeah. And especially with, I mean, I present as a healthy human, but I have cirrhosis of the liver, and that's very
Yeah.
high risk. And nobody would
Very.
know that by looking at me. I look very
Mhm.
healthy, but that's what keeps me being like, yeah, I will do my part. I will
Absolutely.
think about what is going on in every other person, and that is fine with me. I will
We have no
gladly care about
Yeah.
that person. I mean, I think about it too of children, right? The concept is very fucking simple to children of, hey, if you put this on, Tim, your friend, his grandma won't get sick if you wear this. Great.
Yes.
Boom. Done.
My kids have had zero issue. Like, their lives have been flipped upside down by, like, having to be pulled out of their schools, not seeing their friends. Both of it, my mom and my in-laws are here, and they would have a sleepover every Tuesday with my in-laws. They had to, they don't do that. We're finally getting back to now because we are back. Our family is vaccinated, but their lives have been flipped upside down, and they've taken it like champs. They're just like, oh, okay. Or my youngest does, or my oldest, I'm sorry, does kindergarten on the computer, but he doesn't know any different. If you just explain it to them, people are getting sick. We don't want anyone else. We don't want to get anyone else sick. So we got to wear this while we're out. And they have not thrown a fit. They've been like, oh, okay, sounds good.
I mean, yeah, think about all the other stuff you put on kids. It's like, hey, why do we, I mean, think about how many kids just love running around without clothes. Then you finally are like, hey, you got to put on some clothes. And it's like, okay,
yeah,
cool. They're
Or
learning,
it's just like if you can put your
adapting.
kid in a huge big bow, you can put them in a mask.
Right.
Like if they're gonna wear that big headband, they'll be fine in the mask.
Yeah, we're all gonna be fine. It's not that hard.
They react to what you react to.
Right. Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
I'm also thinking, like you said, you grew up with a military family, so you moved all over. I mean,
Hmm.
that's hard. That's even traumatic
Yeah.
for someone growing up, and you learn to
Yeah.
adapt to that, you know?
I don't think it would have been the same if I didn't have my siblings.
Yeah.
Um, like I've the most long term friends I've had are from when we finally moved and stayed. And they're still my best friends to this day. But like I know people who have had best friends since they were like 5 or 4, and that's not an experience that any of my siblings have. But we had each other,
Yeah.
which also makes our bond weirdly close today.
That's so
Like
awesome though.
I thought that everyone kind of talks to this, just says anything to their brothers and sister, and I guess that's not the case. Um, but it would have not, it would have been way more traumatic without them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I had one constant,
Right.
so
Yeah,
right, and
which
this led us to what we are today.
that's so cool. Do they live close to you still?
No, now they don't.
Okay.
My brothers went into the military. My sister's in Arizona.
Okay.
My youngest brother just got back here actually from Japan. He's in the Navy. He's up in DC, so I see him. My older brother he just got stationed in Oregon,
Ah, cool.
but he was in Sacramento. So when we lived in California, we'd go up there every holiday imaginable. But we talk all the time, like we FaceTime all the time. It's kind of, I'm pretty sure we annoy each other how much we talk, but like we're used to the distance though. So
Sure.
I don't know, it's not really a big thing for us. Like I
Yeah.
don't know, it didn't affect our relationship.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Like we have
Um,
kids now, and I wish that they could grow up together. But they
right.
see,
Yeah.
they see them when they can't. But yeah, we're always talking.
I love it. We also have a similarity of playing basketball. What was your position?
Point guard, short
Point guard.
and fast.
That's awesome.
What about you?
I was shooting guard.
Ah,
I just
nice.
camped out on the 3-point
On
line.
that line. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's so fun.
my father, he was from Southside Chicago, and that was his one escape. And just watching him play was beautiful. And he became one of the greatest. I do know a lot of kids who have their father coach them. I was lucky to start off with other coaches, so like he wanted that. So I didn't coach him until I was at the age group that he started coaching, or he didn't coach me until I was at the age group he started coaching. There was no favoritism. There was none of that. And I think watching him teach ball was even more beautiful than watching him play it. He was one hell of a coach.
Yeah.
And I think anyone, like there's so many people that he helped get into college and given opportunities to, or just like let them enjoy basketball on more than a high school, like more than a school level.
Yeah.
All the fun is in AAU.
You're right.
That's where the fun is. And so we had it's probably one of the best times of my life is like going to nationals at Disney World, and we got third there, so that was fun.
Yeah.
So we got third the first year, and then second for our age group the next year. And it was just cool. Like we went from having 6 people on our team, with iron-on letters on jerseys or iron-on numbers on jerseys, to placing second in nationals, and then we had to be in that magazine with like top 25 players.
That's
It
so
was
awesome.
so cool. It was
Yeah.
like I recommend basketball to anybody and everyone, because more than just bouncing the ball.
Yeah.
He said it was a dance. It is.
I've never heard it called that before,
It's
but that
all about
is.
the rhythm. Yeah, all about the
Yeah.
rhythm. So
Totally.
he always played this song by Onyx called Slam. He would just blast it in the gym, and he'd make us bounce the ball and dribble and do drills to the beat of that song, and it worked.
That's so cool. I never
Yeah,
thought about it that way, but that's a really
it,
cool, beautiful
yeah.
way to think about it.
He always said it's all about music. It's all about rhythm. If you're out of rhythm, everything else in the game is going to be out of whack as well.
Yeah. Wow. Huh. I,
So we ran a fast paced game, a running game all the
yeah.
time, just maintain the rhythm. So if you couldn't keep up,
Right.
that's how we played. We called it Havoc.
I love that. That's
Yeah,
so cool.
yeah. So
That's
then it was
so
cool
cool.
to go to VCU where I didn't choose to play basketball. And then their team runs Havoc. They called it Havoc. So I thought
Hmm.
that was so weird.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, yeah. Like, that's very strange.
Yeah. I actually lived in Richmond for a little while and I was
Ah,
going to go to
yeah.
VCU for film school, but then I wasn't from Virginia, so I took a year to get Virginia residency and it didn't work out. But I was trying to go to VCU. I actually worked for VCU in the roofing department for like 2
Oh,
weeks.
that's awesome. VCU is the best. I've met my friends from VCU are my best friends today.
That's
I just had
awesome.
the time of my life. The people, the area, the
Yeah.
art, everything. I loved VCU with a passion.
Yeah, it's so
Like,
cool. It's such a I I I was in such a different part of my life when I lived in Richmond. I was scraping by delivering pizzas from
mm-hmm.
Papa John's. I'm sure you've driven past the Papa John's I worked at
Oh
many
yeah,
a time, right there close to campus.
yeah,
So I didn't get to enjoy it as much. I did love going to the Bird Theater to watch movies. That was so
yeah,
rad. Just I love
yeah.
going to
The
those
old
old
theater,
theaters. Man, it comes up on the
loved it,
organs and stuff. That was
and
super
the
rad.
popcorn was so good.
Yes, it's so good.
Yes,
But I've been back through a few times. I work in the music industry, so I've been back on tour a few times. That I really enjoy going back. It holds a special place in my heart, even though it was
yes,
just such a
same.
strange growth, hard year of my life.
Yeah,
But it was
yeah.
so
I
cool.
wouldn't say Richmond. I wouldn't say I was my healthiest. Uh, yeah. I looking back, I was like 98 pounds, drinking like every day. I worked at Hooters, did multiple waitressing jobs kind of here and there, and it was exhausting, but I love the people there. Like I
Yeah,
love the atmosphere. There's just always something to do, even if it's chill. It's, yeah, I loved it there. But you are right. Looking back, it was a very weird time in life.
yeah. Oh man, yeah, it definitely was. Yeah, by the time I ended there too, it was like when my relationship was ending, and it was just like I gotta get out of here. I'm not like
hmm
that's why I didn't end up going to school there, and it was just like I'm getting out of here. It just didn't
Yeah,
work out very well.
yeah. I realized that it's really small when you think about it.
Yeah,
Like, you know, with such a diverse group of people and how many people are there, it's still like if you're trying to avoid somebody, you're going to see them.
right. Yeah, yeah. It's
Like it
very
doesn't
very
matter where
close
you
knit.
are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's
yeah.
so true. And especially, I'm sure it's grown more now,
It's
but I was
huge.
there in oh god, what year was that? Oh 04, oh 05. So it was still pretty small. I mean, you go to Carytown and you just see anybody you knew. They're just
Everyone,
walking
yeah.
the strip.
I love Carytown though.
Yeah, I remember. Besides the bird, I remembered going to Carytown Burgers and Fries all the time, and I just loved that place. That place
Mm-hmm.
was so damn good.
Or sushi. I forgot what the place is called
There
though.
was some good sushi there too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some great sushi. I loved it there.
Oh yes, it was awesome. Tell me about your art because I've seen the photos of it, and it is unbelievably amazing.
Thank you so much. Well, it started off. My dad. would, whenever he deployed, he would send us in the mail. I would think it was a letter, but I opened it up, it would be a charcoal portrait of like Barbie in her car. And I just remember being enamored by it. Like, he liked doing portraits.
Yeah.
And I guess that's how I got into portraits, because he'd sit me down and be like, draw what you see. And he'd like put his hand out. And I think the first thing I started drawing was hands. And I didn't get it then, but he said because it was the hardest thing to draw. So I was drawing hands in, I want to say, 6th grade. I wasn't very good though.
Yeah.
But then my older brother was in high school at the time, and he was so good. And I just remember being green with envy. Like, I was so mad that he was good at this and I was not. Because everything else we did, like, we both were good at basketball. We both, loved video game. Like, we were both good at the same thing. But he had this one up on me,
Yeah.
like, that's not gonna stand.
Right.
If he's gonna be able to draw, I'm gonna be able to draw. And I just wanted to be like him in every way. And so I just kept drawing, and I would get like random loosely pieces of paper with a pencil and my finger and a tissue to smudge. And I would grab my sister's high school graduation pictures. And that's the first portrait I ever drew, was of my sister on a loose leaf paper.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I was shocked. I was like, oh, snap, that looks just like her. Oh, I like doing this. And so it just went from there. And my dad taught me what he could with pencils. I got into painting in high school with my art teacher. Shout out to Mrs. Stanislaw. She taught me so much. Would not be here today without the lessons she taught me as well. Just taught me about color, and I think that's where I got my love of vibrancy and the use of color to portray emotion. And that art doesn't have to really mean anything. I think people always ask about some profound meaning. Like, what does this mean? Like, I don't do art for meaning. It's like, that stresses me out.
Sure.
I want to convey a feeling. So I wanted to create en masse pieces that make you feel something, whether it be like strength or awe or sadness or just like powerful or just calm, something along those lines. And that's where it started. I just wanted to make something that made people feel good. And so, like, all of my pieces have this kind of like escapism, Edenish vibe, like flowers and women. And that's, I like to pair it with sometimes a male animal head, and it's because I kind of like to draw that parallel between like a softly poised woman with a head that's like a male featured head that's associated with power and strength, because we as a society associate men with strength.
Sure.
So I didn't want to stray away from my roots in, I love flowers, I love color, I love pretty things, but I also wanted them to come off as strong and resilient and represent people that you don't see in art. I got tired of seeing women drawn through the lens of men.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with having a muse or anything like that, but I wanted to see women as something other than a muse. Like, I wanted to see women the way that I see women. And so it slowly turned into me only doing women, and I don't draw men at all. And but it's purposeful. I do it for the people who reach out and are like, thank you for doing this skin tone or using these colors on this skin tone. And I think so often you see creators unable to do darker skin tone, or not unable, unwanting
Yeah.
and associating them with any colors. They'll pick the same colors, and it's like you can put any color on any skin. You just got to work at it.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to create a space for people who didn't feel like they saw themselves in art by an artist who looks like them.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love
Thank
that.
you.
I love
Thank
that.
you.
And man, yeah, I remember when I first saw your paintings, I was like, oh my God. Like I'm just always envious of artists. I'm fascinated by it. I can do I take pretty decent photos, and that's my art.
Well, see, I can't do that. So that's an art in itself.
But I love the thought of using your mind and your hands to create that, and it's just so brilliant. And I love the story and the beauty and the power behind that. That's so amazing.
Thank you. I mean, I always tell people, they'll be like it's a very small portion of it is talent, very small. Just like anything else, it is work, it is practice, commitment. Yeah. Now I'm in a space where like I'll know the way that I go. My process is like I'll have a color in my head, and I want to use that color or that color scheme, and I'll just kind of play around with ideas using that color, and then I just I'll get a flower that I like, and I'm like, okay, that's the color. All right, getting somewhere. And I'll either take like a quick selfie or something just to have a reference picture, and I don't know, it's just a color and a feeling is how it starts out.
Yeah.
And if you don't practice, then you can't create anything out of what you feel. Because you're always going to be looking for like, okay, what's something that I can copy? What's something that I can reference? But I find that if you're not putting your emotions behind it, your true feelings behind it, it's not going to convey anything, and it's not going to feel finished.
Yeah.
And you just got to practice. Like,
yeah.
I took a year off, and all I did was I switched I taught myself to draw digitally, which is a whole different ball game. Different ball game. My gosh. And now I'm obsessed with it. But it's also an accessibility thing. You know, it's something I can do without a ton of pain.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it. But you can't just pick up an Apple Pencil and iPad and just start drawing without knowing what you're doing first. You know, right. It goes back down to the basics, which is, it ties back to my dad sitting me at a table. He would draw one line, and I'd have to connect the line, and it could be squiggly or whatever you want. But we always had to connect the line, and it would turn into this big picture. And then he would like tell us to shade a part of it and turn it into like this masterpiece to follow this piece of paper. And again, just knowing the shape, knowing your own style, knowing yourself. I feel like anyone can draw if they want to, like, but it takes a lot of work. That's why I said if they want to.
Right.
Yeah. It takes a long time.
Yeah, that's so cool. What a cool lesson too, of like, doesn't matter if it's squiggly, it doesn't matter, just gotta connect it. Like, how cool. I just love that.
It doesn't. Yeah. And I think because of that, it's like a lot of my work doesn't blend, if that makes sense. Like I like to layer my work. Like, oh, I mean, you can see that in the background. There's like a triangle, and then there's flowers, and then there's a leopard in front of it. There's 3 distinct layers. And a lot of people, like a lot of criticisms I get from older artists are, you should make it all blend, look like it's all coming together. And I think what that line for line thing taught me is that it doesn't have to. Yeah. You know, it could be whatever you want, how you see it. And not everything has to be tied together. And I think that's what makes it more beautiful.
Yeah. And
something that not everyone sees all the time, unless it's like in abstract art.
Sure.
Yeah. And then, you know, just the need to create something different.
Yeah. I love it. I think it's so beautiful. So beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. I'm gonna throw it off and go on a random question for you.
All right.
COVID restrictions aside, if it was just back to travel as normal and I came to you and I had a plane ticket and it was to anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Oh my gosh. Anywhere?
Anywhere.
I really, really, really want to go to Iceland really bad.
Yeah.
It's just so green and so beautiful. And I feel
Yeah.
like it just smells so good.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. I think I'd say there.
Cool. Yeah, I went 5 or 6 years ago, but I was still drinking massive amounts. So
Yeah.
I did not appreciate it. But my partner and I found out that Iceland is open for vaccinated travelers. So in a month and a week, randomly, in the end of June, we're flying to Iceland and we're spending a month over there just to get
That
a
is
break
so
from here for a
awesome.
while.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
So just so you know, it is open for vaccinated travelers,
I'm
which is a
so
good.
jealous.
It was so
I
fun
look at
to.
pictures of it all the time. It just
It's
looks so beautiful.
it's. I've been very fortunate to travel a lot with work, and then I just traveled on my own because I just said I'm gonna go when I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And Iceland is the one place that when I got there, I felt as if I'd gone to a different planet. It didn't feel. I didn't
That's what I'm going for. Yep.
didn't believe that it was the same plant. Like I look out my window that I'm sitting right beside right now, and I understand what that is because it's very normal looking. But like the
Right.
lava rocks, the green, the blue of the
Oh,
water, it is just it's
unreal.
so bonkers.
I have to go.
Yeah,
I have
I
to go.
highly recommend it.
I've seen people that like I'll follow on Instagram that I went to college with or something, and I think it was 2 people that went, and just it really does look like something out of a sci-fi book.
Yeah,
Like this beautiful fairy tale planet going on, and
yeah,
I need to be there.
yeah. It's so vast and just it's just yeah, it's so crazy.
Yeah,
So
I just
when
feel like if you go, it'd be like no. I feel like all the stress would just drop instantly, and
yeah,
that's what I'm.
that's I'm not underestimating it because I know every time I fly out to somewhere out of this country, I just get my shoulders drop and I just go, oh, okay, I get a minute.
Yes, I always tell
This
people I hate
time,
it here.
what's that?
So I tell everybody I hate it here.
Yeah,
I
same,
hate it here.
same. Um, but after all of this and taking the time off that we had to take off from traveling, after I get over getting on a flight again, because that's something I'm gonna have to deal with in my head, and
The anxiety. Oh my
we're
god.
getting there. I'm working with myself on it, but
Yeah.
I know once we leave the airport and I know we're headed to Reykjavik, I'm just gonna go, oh my god, I'm just gonna melt. I'm
Yes.
gonna melt away and just
Yes.
like let it roll, let it roll
Well,
off.
I commend you because I don't think I could ever hop on a plane again.
Yeah,
I feel like I'd have an instant panic attack. Like I just the a flying germ
I know.
container. I,
Yeah, I know.
I wiped down seats like before COVID.
Right. Yeah. I know, and it's kind of the same battle I'm at with going
Mm-hmm.
back out on tour with bands. It's a tour bus, and I mean we got sick on tour all the time because we're just breathing each other's air.
Yeah. When
So
you think about it now, it's so gross.
it's so I mean it
It was
is.
so
I mean
normal, and now it's so gross.
11 or 12 people living in a hallway is rough on a normal time. Yeah, it's funny when people look at a tour bus and they go, "Ooh, that's so glamorous," and it's like, "Yeah, right.
I did.
Yeah, right."
You're right. Because I did at first. I was like, oh, that looks so much fun. Then you think about it, and it's like, ew. I don't know.
Yeah,
COVID has brought everything. Like we used to blow on, or someone used to blow on their birthday cake candles and then share it with everybody.
right.
Everything was
I know.
gross. And I think it's also exposed to how people don't wash their hands. And so,
Yes.
like, I don't want to go anywhere or touch anything
Yeah. Same.
ever.
Yeah. There's
Mm.
so much that I think about from the past that I just cringe. I'm like,
Yeah,
what were we
yeah.
doing? We're so disgusting.
Everything is so gross.
Yuck. Ugh. Yeah, it's definitely if you were not OCD, you're pretty damn close to it by now.
Yeah, and I was like diagnosed with it before.
Yeah.
So
Oh
I just
man.
like there's not enough Germex in the world.
Right. Yes. Oof, man.
Like ugh.
All right. I have two more questions for you.
Okay.
First one is, what would you want the world to know about you?
Mm. I don't know because I'm a pretty open book. Like I try to share all my experiences because I got tired of feeling alone, and I feel like no one shares like the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I guess that I'm not as cold or um, angry as I come off as. Like I, yeah, I guess that
Okay.
because like if you would look at any of my socials, it's more like activism or
Right.
just being stupid. There's nothing really in between.
Yeah.
um, but I'm actually I'm very goofy and different. That's
Yeah.
the only way I can put it. So I guess it's that I'm not as cold and angry as I put out there. But there are things I'm angry about, but I'm not as a
Right.
person
Yeah.
that
Well,
off-putting.
well, I haven't felt that in our
Oh, thank you.
conversation. I've
Thank you.
thoroughly enjoyed it, and
Thank you.
I think it's the way you said it is a pretty open book, and I think that's so important with your journey and everything that's going on in the world to be open and just talk about things. Also, because you control your narrative as well when you're open
Mm-hmm.
book. So if you're saying everything, whatever, if anybody else comes out and says something, it's like, I already said it. You can't hurt me.
Yeah, like
I already said it. I'm
there's,
not hiding anything.
and
Here's
then it's
the
also like
good, the
I'm
bad.
okay. Yeah, I'm okay with being a villain if like I'm okay with it because I don't care.
Yeah.
Like we all are at one point.
Yeah.
And I just like we don't see or the world doesn't really acknowledge people with like invisible illnesses. I think that includes mental,
Yeah.
obviously, but I think it also includes trauma. Um, like no one talks about it,
Right.
like hardcore traumas. And after the trauma of my dad passing, and then well, he disappeared first, and then he passed. So you have someone in your life, your whole life, and then they're just gone,
Yeah.
and then they're gone permanently.
Right. Holy hell.
You don't, people don't talk about stuff like that, and then when you do talk about it, you're seen as depressed or
Right.
I don't want to see any of that. And it's like, if that's how you view me, okay. But I know that I feel alone. And if I'm talking about this, maybe other people won't feel as alone as
Right.
I did and sometimes still do. Like sometimes people will message me and just be like, thanks for saying that. That's exactly how I feel. I relate to this. And I make sure that I reach out to people when I feel like something they said resonated with me too.
Totally.
Because that's how I started being an open book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And things happen.
Right. Right. There's a lot of shit in the world that isn't fun. It isn't easy to talk
Yeah.
about, but no matter what you're going through, somebody else, not exactly the same, but someone's having similar. It's
Yeah.
yours because you're dealing with it, but someone else out there has had that happen in some
Yeah.
way,
Someone
shape, or
can
form and
feel,
needs to hear it.
yeah.
And maybe they've been harboring it for a year, 2 years, whatever it
Yeah.
may be. And then they hear you or I talking about something and they go, oh, wow, I'm not
Yeah,
alone in
and
the world.
me harboring it. I used to be a very reserved person. Like when it like I still have issues crying in front of people. I now know that that's a trauma response. But that's not the point. I just I don't like being vulnerable in front of people as a whole. I never have, even since I was little. Like my sister always says that I like looked through people and I never cried. So I was like, she thought I was a psycho. And looking back, like I could see that.
Yeah.
And I tried doing that just by default. And it put me in a darker place. Because there are just some things that you cannot contain. Like we're not supposed to be able to harbor things that are that dark or that heavy by ourselves.
Right.
You know, it can lead to chronic illness.
Right.
It could, you know, it can start manifesting in ways that you didn't know stress can manifest.
Yeah.
And it affects your whole life in every aspect. And, you know, talking about it, I wouldn't say is like healing, but it just leaves no room for, I guess, questions or like, I feel like people understand you more when you let them know the things that you've been through. Like people might understand why you react the way you react, or
Right.
why you're on a bender, or like it just, you know,
Totally.
I feel like people are more empathetic and understanding.
Yeah.
You just put it out there. Like I've the biggest issue I had was caring at all
Mm-hmm.
about anything
Yeah.
really. And I feel like because I let people know that, they didn't take it personally.
Yeah.
So like all my friends and family have been very. I still have a hard time talking to people. Like I'm very isolated. I don't have all of my mental energy goes into trying to heal mentally,
Yeah.
and spiritually and all that. And so like when you let people know, you know, they don't. People who love you aren't going to judge you anyway,
Right.
but they give you more room. Like they don't take things like as you're avoiding them personally.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when I started sharing my story with my alcoholism, the one that stuck out, and I didn't want to come out and say it just to get the like little golf claps and all the likes and all that on
Yeah.
Facebook, which you should congratulate your friends, like your mother's. Congratulations to her. That's so fantastic. I'm so happy to hear her story with her journey. But I shared it, and I was out on a tour and a friend of mine saw me, and I was 3 months sober. I was actively trying not to die. I was trying to figure life out and see what the hell life looked
Right.
like as a sober human. I was still very sick looking. Um, and I told him a little bit about my story, kept going along my way. And then when I shared my story, it was probably a year and a few months into my journey, and this had been over a year ago that I'd been on this tour. I finally wrote about it, and he sent me a message, and he just said, "Hey, dude, I have to let you know, when you wrote this and I read it, and I like after I saw you on that tour and I saw how well you were doing, and I said, man, if Nick can do what he's doing and he can get sober and go on tour, I can do this." So he told me that because he saw me doing well and actively trying to get sober, and he went out on his first tour sober, the next tour. And when
That's
he wrote me,
incredible.
he goes, "I just passed my 1 year sobriety," which about a month ago he hit his 2 year. And I was like,
That's awesome, man.
dude, you
See,
just
it
have
only takes one.
no clue what power you can give somebody else just by
Yes.
speaking up or saying something or just living what you're saying out
Yep.
loud. And that's
Absolutely.
where it started for me to share my story more, and then just have conversations to uplift others' stories as well,
Yeah.
because we
I
all
just,
need to
I,
hear people's stories.
yeah. I think that we get worse when we don't feel like anyone else can relate, when most people can.
Right.
So I struggled with alcohol right after my father passed, which seems weird because alcohol took his life.
Right.
Um, and it's also alcohol in our family. It's a generational thing.
Yeah.
That's affected and taken many lives in my family. And after my father, I was kind of like, well, I just was not sober for months.
Yeah.
Like it was. I don't think I've ever drank that much in my life, and it was to a point, like waking up, coffee, drink.
Yeah.
And have some water in between if I remember.
Right.
Drink some more, go into a dark room, and watch Netflix or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad, but nobody knew except for my husband who was here.
Right.
Finally, it's like, I'm worried, it's like something's wrong. But he'd go to work, and I'd go to the dollar store and get some wine, like,
yeah,
because he wasn't buying anymore, and it was months on end. I think that's when I finally understood how hard it is for anyone struggling with addiction to find new ways to cope.
Right. Right.
That was because I didn't stop until like a close friend of mine and my husband were like, I get it, but something's wrong.
Yeah.
This is going down that path.
Right.
And it was, I don't think people also realize how easy it is to go down that path.
Oh man, it's
quick. Yeah. And you still want to do it.
Right. Yeah.
You still want to.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, when your coping mechanism is also the massive issue, it's really hard to figure out something else to cope with your coping mechanism being gone and your addiction, also your issue being gone. You lose all three of those in one foul swoop. So you have to figure out what makes sense to do differently.
What can keep me not stressed out.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Right.
I don't.
Impossibly hard.
You want to numb everything.
Right.
Some things you just cannot. Something I feel like I really feel this in my soul is that our brains just cannot fathom some things.
Right.
I know that from experience.
Yeah.
And I think when we can't understand it, we just overthink about it. It's just there all the time. And that for me, that was the case. And drinking, it wouldn't be there so much. I didn't care.
Yeah, exactly.
And like I didn't go with the drink. I had my first alcoholic beverage, I want to say, I think it was 2 weekends ago in a year. But I was able to have that day, and then now I'm back. But again, I don't struggle with addiction for years.
Yeah.
But I could see how it is a slippery slope, and
yeah.
I can see the struggle, and I feel like that has given me a lot more empathy for my mother as well. I harbored so much anger, for something that wasn't her fault.
Yeah. Yeah, that it's a never-ending battle. Even when you get years and years in, it's one slip up and it can be right back into it. And yeah, I know.
It's hard work every day. And I've seen her hard work, and I don't think people realize how serious addiction is.
Right.
Like addiction it is hardcore drugs, but it's also alcohol. It's also gambling.
Right. Big time.
And I don't think people put those things together. And they ruin it. It ruins families. It takes people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, especially alcohol, because it's so just commonplace. I mean, so many conversations, especially once I got away from drinking and I started being so actively listening and being vigilant when I'm around it, just how many people have full-on conversations and the only thing they talk about is how much they drank or what they drank, especially during quarantine, of like, well, I started drinking at 3, which I fully understand. If I wouldn't have made it through quarantine if I wasn't sober. With my drinking habits, I'm not even being morbid. I just wouldn't have.
Yeah,
that's
another thing. Is that I feel like when you talk about it, people call you morbid, and it's like, no, this is.
I'm just realistic. I almost died, in a normal world. So if I was locked
Yeah,
down and
for
nothing to
sure.
do and absolutely nowhere to go, what else would I have done? I
Yeah,
barely functioned because I was on high level touring gigs. That was the only
yeah,
reason I tried to somewhat function.
yeah. And that's the most annoying part about it. And it's like, you're so depressing, you're so morbid. It's
Yeah,
like, no, this is real life.
right.
You have to live, you have to be so privileged and in a bubble to think that people talking about their experiences is morbid or dark or
Right.
depressing. And it's like, that's what makes us who we are,
Right.
our experiences and how we react to them and how we grow from them.
Yeah.
Not all of us grow in the best way, but
Right.
we grow when we do. We do what we can, what
Yeah.
we got, and I just, it's very, it's a very lonely process. And then just finally not caring if people view you as dark or morbid is really freeing as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your truth is out there. You are who you are.
Right. Because I'll take one story similar to what my friend told me, and that will fuel me for years
Yep.
more than someone saying, "Why do you talk about that so much?" Because it's a
Yeah.
cautionary tale too. You might be
Yeah.
thinking you're having a real good time, but just be careful. That's it. Think about it.
Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
real consequences to the shit that you
Yes.
do.
Or it's like, if even people seeing, like, if you talk about the beginning of your addiction and like how it kind of stumbled out of control, then people will stop and be like, wait, I'm at this point.
Right.
You know
Totally.
what? When am I going to be on that side of
Yeah.
the scale that falls?
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I just feel like there's so much before my traumas and before illness and before alcohol that I was so blind to because I did grow up in a bubble.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, it going back to the question of what's your story, it's like, I don't know, because there's so many of them.
Right.
So many different versions of myself. I don't know.
Yeah. It's
Like, I
all
can give
it's
you
a
the
very
general.
complex. Yeah.
It's very complex.
Yeah. It's
No.
beautiful though to follow all the lines of where they've been to, where they've come from, where you're
Yeah.
at, where you're growing. So I like talking
Yeah.
about it. It opens Pandora's box, and then you start talking about the good, the
It
bad, the
does.
ugly, all of it. And I'm in
It
for all
does.
of it
It does.
because it's all that. That's life. That's the
Yeah.
truth of life, is that it's not perfect, but that's what
Right.
the title of the podcast is, Beautifully Human. That's what makes us beautifully human, not physically beautiful,
Yeah.
but that shit that we deal with and
Hmm.
like we bring into life and that happens to us in life. It makes us beautifully human.
I also, when you said that, it made me also remember that when you start realizing that there's a lot of bad stuff that goes on in life, like, you have these great grand moments, but there's a lot of shit that comes with it. And that the world as a whole is like, whoa, not what I thought being an adult was going to be like. You come to like these self realizations that lead to existential crisis. Like, just the whole, why am I here? What is the purpose of all of this?
Right?
What is the purpose of what I just went through?
Yeah.
What, I'm just going to be gone one day. Like, what? It leads to a whole different thing that's hard to cope with as well.
Totally.
So like, it's not
Totally.
even just coping with your traumas or coping with your addictions. It's coping with the self realizations.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
just,
totally.
yeah,
I
it's hard.
mean, yeah, mine with my when I went into the hospital, I was told I might not have another day. I was that close. And so I fully, at that point, I had to sit there that night and come to grips with life. I had to look back at I was 33 at the time, and I had to come to grips with
Yeah.
what did I do? What was life? what legacy did I leave? Like what?
Am
And
I gonna
I
be
mean,
remembered? You know?
yeah, and it
Yeah.
actually was a beautiful starting point for me to, because I, like you said, when you talked about not caring and you have to let people know that, like that was a big one for me. I just didn't think I gave
Yeah.
a fuck if I lived or died. Then when I
Hmm.
was presented with it, I was like, I do. Okay, I do. I'm
Yeah.
proud of myself for that. But also when I was sitting there just thinking on my hospital bed, I said I was really happy with that I lived my life my way and that I didn't play it safe. I took chances and I did what I wanted to do. So I was really happy with myself. And so in that moment of one of the hardest realizations I've had to come to in my life, that if I close my eyes, I have no idea if they're coming back up. That
That's a
I,
terrifying moment.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I was like, yes, there's stuff I wanted to do still. There's places that I didn't get to, but I did a hell of a good job getting to the places I wanted to go to. And I lived life and I enjoyed it. So, and
Yeah.
that was a really big empowerment moment for me. And then moving forward, it also was like, okay, I want to leave the best mark on this world that I can. I want to have conversations with people. I want to travel and see the world. I want to meet people from other cultures. And I want to show people as they are and open
Hmm.
other people's minds who might not have ever spoken to you or anybody else that I speak to, just to listen to someone else's story from a lens of their own and then look inward and do that themselves. Just spread those
Yeah.
ripples around,
Yeah.
and that's what I can do with it. And
That's
that's
incredible.
where I'm at. Is just
That's incredible.
I want to spread the love and the beauty and the humanity around the world, and that's my mission with whatever amount of time I have left on this earth.
Yeah. That's amazing. Isn't it? Isn't it a weird feel? I feel like that's the weirdest part about any type of moral dilemma, or like not dilemma, but like just coming to terms with your morality. Like going to sleep and not knowing if you're going to wake up. If you've never experienced that, then like consider yourself lucky,
Yeah.
you know. But when there also comes something beautiful with it, like I had the opposite realization, is that I just wasn't being who I actually am. Like I was trying to fit this mold of a military wife,
Mm.
of a mom, like a stay-at-home mom, like just trying to be this. And you know, no shame to anybody who are like the golden standard stereotype. That's what I
Sure.
aspired to be, you know.
Yeah.
But it wasn't me. Uh, and I didn't start realizing until I got sick that I didn't feel like I was authentic
Mm.
at all times. And so now I I'm doing things that 13-year-old in basketball shorts Brittany would be doing. And like I've gotten back into gaming.
Nice.
I gamed most of my life, but now I'm like hardcore into it. But it's also because of chronic illness. You know,
Yeah.
like you can only watch so much TV and
Right.
read so many books. You know, and it's opened up a whole new hobby and community and
Yeah.
more nerds alike. And
Right. Right.
yeah, and it's, you know, I'm back to just not caring what I look like in public. Like I'm just, you know,
Yeah.
happy with myself
Yeah.
for who I am. Like I still don't care.
Right.
Like I still have issues caring.
Yeah.
Um,
Same.
but the positive side of it is that I also don't care in a good way.
Right. There is a good way to
It is a good way
not
not to
care.
give a shit. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm the same. I think when I was looking at myself, the one part of me that I was really not ashamed of, but I was like, I need to stand up for what I believe in. I need to be
Yeah.
more open. But when you're drinking and you're numb, it's just like, I just don't give a fuck in any way. So
Yeah.
whatever. But when I started into my journey, I was like, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to be vocal
Mm-hmm.
about the things that I need to, and I'm not going to care what people think on the other side or think I'm ridiculous for talking about
Yeah.
it. That's where I took that extra step of like, okay, I was proud of myself for doing what I wanted to do, but now with that, knowing that I can do that, I need to also have these
Yeah.
conversations and be
Like,
more vocal and stand for what I think and truly believe.
yeah, now that you say that, that's what my realization went to. It was like, if I my eyes don't open in the morning, I don't want the generic, she was so kind,
Right.
such a loving mom, such a devout friend. Like, if I were to not wake up, what I'd want is a description of who I actually am. Tell people I'm a badass. Tell people
Yes.
that I call people out. Tell people I don't care. Tell people that I'm funny. Tell people that I'm crude. Like, tell the truth about who I am. But I realized that I couldn't. They couldn't tell the truth if they didn't know. You
Right.
know, if I didn't outwardly be that person.
Yes.
And even just not being tolerant. Um, I feel like as a society, we try to tell people you have to be tolerant of all kinds of people. And for the most part, yes,
Right.
but also no. You know,
Right.
boundaries exist.
Yes.
Um, and once I stopped being tolerant for people who stood for things that diminished my worth or
Right.
the worth of people who look like me or my children or my husband or my brothers, like, or my sister. And once I just like, without explanation, like, that's all I needed to know about you.
Right.
And we're not cool.
Right.
Once I started doing that, my life got significantly easier.
Yeah.
Like, I started to, people know where I stand on things, but I started like actively calling people on their shit. I've always done that. Just been a little more profound about it these days. I could have a little more tact,
Eh,
but once you go through certain things,
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
hey,
And it's sometimes the tact doesn't even help, so it's better to come at it.
right, being nice doesn't always.
Right.
People don't really respond. I've learned if you could say something in the nicest way, and they won't care.
Right. And if they're not going to care either which way, you might as well say it exactly how you want them to hear it
You might as well
and
say it how
walk
you feel.
away.
Yeah,
Yeah. Rather
exactly.
than like
See,
sugarcoating it and
exactly.
being like, oh, I know either way I say this, you don't care.
Yeah.
I'm going to say truth and hard truth, and you're not going to like it, but you're not going to like it either way. So I'm going to come
Mhm.
at you. Yeah.
Mhm. So, like, perfect example is my oldest was getting bullied by this child. This was right before my father passed. Getting bullied. We were having issues for months. So I did what I thought stay-at-home moms, like, I handle it how I thought they handle it. You go to the school, you talk to the teachers, try to schedule a meet up with the parent. My dad passed, and it happened again. The kid straight up like punched him in the nose, or I think it was the neck or something. And I didn't give a heads up. I just rolled up to the school and I was like, "Look, I'll beat you and your mom's ass. Let's just touch my kid again. We're all gonna fight."
Yeah.
And we didn't have an issue. We didn't have an issue after that. I
Yeah.
tried to talk to the parents.
Right.
They It was clear where the behavior came from.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to put hands on my kid, I'll put hands on you. That's just how it's gonna work,
Yeah.
you know. And we haven't had an issue since.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so again, tolerance. You don't have to.
Right.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
Sometimes all it takes is a really simple gesture, and people will leave you alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've stopped caring. Like I just,
Yeah.
you know, is actually stopping caring led to one of the funniest stories of my life. Um, in my darkest era of like holding my traumas in and just, it was around Christmas time and holidays are still really hard.
Sure.
So just, yeah, I was not doing good. But one of my things that I was holding on to and looking forward to was the PlayStation 5. I was like, oh my gosh, because I've been a Switch gamer this whole time. I was like, I want one so bad, you know. You have all the games that I'd like to play, like open world RPGs and stuff. And all the games I like to play. I want to try Call of Duty. Like, I'm so excited. So, waiting for months to miss the drops every time put me in a darker place. It sounds dumb now, but then it was like, you know, anything can put you
Of course. Yeah.
right. And so finally, this guy reached out, and mind you, I had never bought a console or anything like that. I was a Switch gamer, so getting a Switch, I had zero issue getting
Yeah.
one. So I didn't know how hard it was or how many people scam people, or like I was very naive to it.
Yeah.
This guy though reached out and was like, "Hey, my fiance got the wrong version. He wanted the physical version instead of the digital one, and I was looking for a digital one. I'll sell it to you. No problem. I'm just trying to break even. I'm not trying to make a profit off it." And to me, that sounded like, oh, yeah,
Sweet.
naive. Um, and so he gave me his number. I texted him, and we ended up having a conversation. You know, he said he saw my art. His fiance's into art. Gave her my number. I didn't have hers, but he gave her my number, and he just seemed like really authentic. Even talked about how his daughter had a chronic illness.
Mm.
Now I mean, I'm sure she does, but now I know that was just to get me to trust them more. So, anyways, I send half. He wanted the full amount then. I said no, so I send half the money up front, half the money when I get it. I sent half the money. He sent me like an entire receipt, the shipping receipt with a store number and everything, and the date. So that's what I asked for.
Yeah.
I sent him the remaining one, and then I didn't hear from him at all. And when I texted him back, but you know when you text someone with an iPhone, it's blue,
Yeah.
and if they block you something, it's green. Well, it was green, so I knew immediately.
Ugh.
And again, I'm in the midst of my not giving a fuck
Right.
about anything.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, I'll give this guy a chance to refund me in a very peaceful way before I burn everything down. And that
Yeah.
was just how my mindset was.
Right.
So I reached out on Twitter where he reached out to me and was like, you have until 9 p.m. on Tuesday. Yeah, I think it was Tuesday. On the specific day to give me my money and I'll drop this. I don't want anything extra, just my money. Oh, we can go our separate ways. He ignored it. On Twitter, you could see that they read it or whatever. And he would
Yeah.
just change his username to a different variation of his name. So he kept doing that. I was like, okay, well, you're not a very good scammer. Like I fell for it, but you're also bad at it.
Right.
So he kept changing it. So finally, or I reached out on my husband's phone because my number was blocked. He read it and then blocked my husband's phone. I made another Twitter and reached out on him. I tried everything I could to do it peacefully.
Yeah.
He chose otherwise. So I obliged. So eventually I went over the deep end and I reverse searched his name the name that he kept using. And it popped up like 3 different ones. And then finally he changed it to this one that he hadn't used before, but it still had one of the names. And boom, spot on, matched with all the rest of them. Address, mortgage, wife or fiance,
Wow.
cars, father. And then I cross-referenced it with the store number and the county that the Staples was in. Boom, perfect match. Like, perfect. So I founded an entire legal company. Yeah, an entire legal team that night, and created an email and sent it to all the emails, including father, whoever was in that family. The email went to them, and I made it look super legit. Basically saying, well, I did report him to like the IC3 or whatever, the internet crime for fraud and stuff. So I did actually do all of that. But I also was like, this happened across state lines. The guy was in Maryland. I'm here. So it could be federal charges, which serve up to something amount of years, which are all stuff that I actually looked up. And that same night, I'm relaxing. I took some Ativan, the nerves were hot. I was playing my Switch, minding my own business. And I have a frantic, or my husband tells me, like, check your phone. My phone's on Do Not Disturb at 9:45 every night. Yeah. Like, check your phone. And I thought he was sending me like a stupid video or something.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
I'll check it. And it's these frantic text messages from the fiance he gave my number to for my art.
Uh-huh.
She's like, oh my God, I cannot believe he did this. I cannot believe he's the type of person. And she's frantic. And so I just told her everything. I was like, and he used your daughter's chronic illness.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh my God, we have to leave. I'm making him refund you now. So what happened was he texted my husband. I don't know why he didn't just text my phone, but he texted, or I guess his wife texted me and I wasn't answering. So he texted my husband's phone. I don't know why he didn't just text mine. Then finally he texted me. And, things just kept transpiring between me and his wife. He still tried to lie and tell his wife's fiance that he paid me. He did not. So I snitched again. And then by 12:01 a.m., something like that, I had my $450 back in my bank account.
Nice.
Because he thought that the FBI was going to press charges.
I love it.
From a Gmail account. It's just like...
It's so good.
So I told Twitter or whatever. Well, I told my friends and they were like, you have to put that on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, you have to. But I told them because that's a completely normal thing for me to do.
Yeah.
And so I told them, they're like, no, you have to put it on Twitter. I put it on Twitter, and before I know it, it was everywhere. It had like game blogs and stuff reaching out.
Oh, wow.
And that all stems from not caring.
Right. I love it. Yeah.
What else am I going to do?
Right.
Can't give any names. Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Oh, man. I love that.
And it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't in the darkest moment not caring.
Right.
I would have just been like, well, that was an L. Might as well take it.
Yeah.
And I was tired of taking L's. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. That's amazing. I love that.
Twitter said it's funnier than I say in person. But
so good.
It's very vulgar. That's why I didn't say it out loud.
I mean, you're more than welcome to.
It's long.
Yeah.
I can give you the link for it. I can give you the link for it, but it's funny.
Awesome. All right. My last question for you is, if you had the ear of everybody in the world, what would you say to them?
Don't be an asshole.
Yeah, it's pretty simple.
I was going to say something like, you're not alone, but in all honesty, just don't be an asshole.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. I feel like nobody hears it enough.
Yeah, so true.
If it's warranted, go for it, but don't be an asshole for no reason.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice people.
Yeah. Be nice.
Yeah.
Stop being an asshole. Don't be an
asshole. Give people the benefit of the doubt, and then go from there. But You
Yeah.
don't need to start off like that.
No. Nobody's got time for that shit.
No, and things are hard already. Like, stop being so miserable.
Right.
Just,
Live.
we're all
Enjoy.
miserable already. Stop it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Making life harder. Don't be an asshole.
Yep.
Anybody hearing this, don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole. I agree.
Yeah. Like, life lesson.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Well, Brittany, this has been an absolute pleasure. I've had so much fun chatting with you, and I appreciate you coming on and hanging with me.
Thank you for having me on. It was a fun experience.
Yeah.
I'm sorry
cool.
if I went on rant.
No sorries.
Rant.
I don't accept your apologies. Don't accept it.
Okay.
No sorries are accepted here. So I appreciate it. I loved hearing every story, every experience. So I appreciate you being open and honest and chatting.
I hope I answered your questions thoroughly, or like
It was perfect.
accurately.
Absolutely
Okay.
perfect.
Good.
All right. Well, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And
You too.
Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Beautifully Human podcast. To hear more beautiful stories from beautiful humans, follow us on Spotify and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at the Beautifully Human Podcast. Peace signs up.